Hi everyone, good morning. Today is 11th of May and I welcome you all at the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, let's start with the video. In the today's video, we are going to discuss the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper, all the articles which are important we are going to take. And before starting, I would like to tell you that you can download the explainer notes of this entire session from our Telegram channel. Link for Telegram channel is given in description box in YouTube. Now, starting up, so guys, first of all, let's see the overview of entire newspaper so that we can understand that actually which articles are important. So here, Karnataka records 72.68% turnout in assembly polls. Okay, the article is not important with respect to the examination, that how much the turnout has happened, what exit polls says, not important. Then higher pension EPFO offices told to work out dues of subscribers. Okay, now again guys, moving on in this particular direction, when we talk about the higher pension, so how the pension will be calculated, what percentage of higher pensions will be given. Okay, again not important article for the examinations. Okay, no need to go too much in detail. Then further moving on, we have the advertisements coming to the city section. Government announces scheme to regulate cab aggregators, delivery service providers. So in this particular direction, guys, government is coming out with a detailed policy. Okay. Then further moving on, after that, guys, again the political issues have been given. Advertisements, you are not required to go here too much because nothing much important and relevant is given. Okay. Moving on, guys, in this particular direction, continuing in this particular direction. Okay, here actually there is one important article that has come. Supreme Court to pronounce a verdict on Center Delhi tussle today. Delhi versus Center. The question is who has control over the bureaucrats. So from the past few months, guys, there is actually this issue that is going on in the news, that who will be controlling the cadre of the civil servants who are posted in Delhi. Now, when we talk about the civil servants, they play an important role in every government department, and center government says that the center government has control over the civil servants, and because of that particular thing, by controlling their transfers, by controlling their promotions and everything, virtually center government has a control over every department in Delhi. So the Delhi government says that this is like a king without the kingdom. So the power on the bureaucrats should be given to the Delhi government and not to the central government. This particular matter is now lying in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will finally be giving its judgment today, that who will finally be controlling the bureaucrats in Delhi. So this judgment will come today, and then we will see this what this judgment is actually all about. Okay, then further moving on, we come to editorial page. So the first article, a ground view of the Indian space policy 2023. We'll see this article. This is a good article. Then the power play. Okay, so the article talks about the Maharashtra politics. Not important article for your exam. No need to go there. The fallout of Putin helping make NATO great again. We'll see this particular article, that how Russia indirectly has helped the NATO to gain, to consolidate. Okay, then snap judgment. Okay, so guys, this particular article talks about the recent death of the cheetahs. So we see this particular thing, guys, that India has already imported 20 cheetahs from South Africa. Okay, from 20 cheetahs from Africa, out of which Namibia and South Africa we have imported cheetahs. Okay, 20 cheetahs from Africa we have imported. Now basically, guys, when we talk about the cheetahs, so recently what has happened, there is a death of a cheetah recently that has happened. Okay, and this is the third death of the cheetah. And since then, there are the many comments that are coming that India's cheetah relocation plan is failing. Okay, so the article says that it is not like that. Okay, when such kind of a translocation happens, there is also the natural mortality that happens. Many times when animals have to adapt, they are not able to cope up with the new environment, and then these mortalities do happen. Okay, then moving to next article, Pokhran 2, a moment of profound epiphany. Now, guys, basically this article has a political undertone. The article is saying that 25 years back, okay, when the Pokhran was being held, after that civil nuclear deal happened. So India was doing such a great things. India was achieving the great success, great heights. But what is happening today? Okay, it is nowhere near to what actually happened in the past. Okay, 25 years back. Okay, so the article has a little bit of a political undertone, and it actually doesn't contains much of the substance which is relevant for our examination. So no need to go too much here in this. Then further moving, the perilous lives of Indian workers. Now this article, it talks about the recent Directorate General Factory Advice Service and Labour Institute report. which has provided that there were 32,413 accidents that were reported across the various industries. Okay. Okay, so here now what actually is given. So basically the year, okay, 20, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15 year, and how many accidents have happened, how many injuries have happened. Then the state-wise data with respect to the accident injuries have been given. Okay, now when we talk about, guys, the occupational safety is an important thing, and also we have a labor code on the occupational safety, but you are not really required to track every year's data, every state's data with respect to the number of accidents that are happened. Then coming to text and context page, the trouble of India's aviation industry. So recently we have seen that the Go First has applied for insolvency to the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. Okay, and this article is actually talking about that what are the problems that India's aviation sector is facing. So we have seen that the Jet Airways, Kingfisher, Go First, and many such airways actually have exited the market. We will take this article. Then further moving to text and context, the uprising of 1857, the Meerut's role in the first war of India's independence. Now guys, this is a bibliography article. So basically this bibliography article gives the premises from the certain of the books, the last Mughal, the colonial subjugation. Okay, and from this particular thing, the article is basically giving the premise of these books. Now guys, if you want to read, you can read the article for your interest, but actually the point is that the book premises etc are not are not that much important for our GS examinations. Okay, GS papers. Then coming to the next page, India US to strengthen G20 cooperation. We'll see this particular article. Prime Minister to unveil plan for museum in Central Secretariat next week. Okay. Then guys, further moving on after that, we don't have much important articles here. Okay. Fine. Then again, the political articles etc have been given, so we will move. Okay. Fine. Now moving on. Okay, so here we have one article, foreign medical graduates can intern in any state. Now what this particular article is talking about, so basically guys, National Medical Commission has recently announced that if a person has graduated, has taken the medical education from some another country, and if they want to come and they want to have an internship in India, they can do that in any state. Earlier there was the domicile certificate that was to be asked, that okay, if you are from Tamil Nadu and if you have done some you have taken the medical education, let's say from Germany, and now you want to practice, you want to intern in India, and if you are from Tamil Nadu, only in Tamil Nadu you can do the internship. So now the National Medical Commission has said that foreign medical graduates, they can intern in any state. Okay, the domicile certificate is not is not necessary. Now here we have article, study on sludge finds high potential for use as fertilizer after treatment. We'll see this particular article with respect to the exam. Then ICMR conducts trial run of blood bag delivery by drone. We'll see this particular article also. Then guys, moving to the world page. Okay, so Iran sent to 8-day remand. Israel-Palestinian militants trade fire despite truce claims. Evolutionary articles, not important for the examination. No need to go too much in detail here. Then again, the Go First, which has applied for the NCLT. Okay, the Go First has applied for the insolvency. Its petition has been accepted. And NCLT has also appointed the basically has also appointed the resolution professional who will identify that if there can be the revival which can happen. Okay, now one more thing is that you are not required to track every day. Now the application has accepted, now the process has begun, now this has been said, now this has happened. Okay, then after that we have largely the corporate trends here. Okay, fine. Then we have this sports page. So this is, guys, the overview of entire newspaper, and now let's discuss all the relevant articles one by one in detail. Okay, now guys, in every class we start with the GS quotation, and this quotation can be used to complement your answers. So today we'll take the quotation from Saint Augustine, who says, right is right even if no one is doing it. Wrong is wrong even if everyone is doing it. So what majority believes, what majority says, doesn't makes a thing acceptable or unacceptable. Even if a majority is doing something, it is wrong. It can be wrong. And even if nobody is doing it, it is still right. So majority approval doesn't place the important thing. What is right, even no one is doing it. And what is wrong, even if everybody doing it. Okay, we can use this particular quotation for our GS paper number 4 ethics, integrity and aptitude. Now moving on guys, and let's take the first article for today. So the first article, the troubles of India's aviation industry. The troubles of India's aviation industry. So recently we have seen this thing that the Go First has declared that they are ceasing their operation, and they have applied to National Company Law Tribunal that they want to declare their insolvency. Okay. Now this particular article is largely talking about that what are the problems largely that India's airlines, India's aviation industry is facing. Okay. So we are going to discuss all those particular issues one by one in the detail. Now let's start with that. This particular article we are going to see with respect to GS paper number 3. GS paper number 3, sectors of Indian economy, aviation sector, and within the infrastructure also. Fine, we can use this particular article. Let's start what the article actually is talking about. First of all guys, when we talk about the India's aviation sector, it has faced a lot of losses after the pandemic began in 2020 because of the lockdown that got started. So 2020, 2021 and 2022 also were tough years for the India's aviation industry. But now India's aviation industry is recovering back, and it is registering the growth at the pre-pandemic level. And actually the month of March the month of March 2023 has registered more number of flyers compared to the pre-pandemic years. Okay, so the growth is now coming up again. Now, when we talk about guys, the India's civil aviation industry, according to the Civil Aviation Ministry, it is said that India will have more than 140 million passengers in financial year 2024 alone. 140 million passengers will fly through aircrafts. And according to CAPA, Center for Aviation Projects in CAPA, Center for Aviation, CAPA, Center for Aviation, it projects or it estimates that India is going to handle 1.3 billion passengers annually in the next 20 years. Okay, so India's civil aviation industry is going to increase at such a rate. 1.3 billion passengers will be handled by in the next 20 years. Moreover, when we talk about the presently India has 148 airports, and India is the third largest domestic market in the world. Third largest domestic market in the world. And now as we are coming with Udan scheme, Ude Desh ke Aam Nagrik, and as we are opening the airports in the tier 2 cities, small cities also, and more regional routes are being explored as the part of the Udan scheme, more airports will be there, more airstrips will be there, and more people will be flying through air. Moreover guys, when we talk about the tariffs, as the tariffs of railways are being rationalized, they have increased a bit. So basically today the people who used to travel through railways, first class, second class, they are also preferring to travel through the airways. Okay, so aviation industry is going to boom. Now why the aviation industry has the challenges? Let's start that. So basically, when we go talk about guys the aviation industry, so before the 1991 LPG reforms, largely it was under the control of two carriers, that is Air India, that is Air India and Indian Airlines. But after LPG, we allowed the entry of the private airliners also in India. And what happened? Basically, Jet Airways, Sahara, they got the license. Few of other also got the license, but the Jet Airways and Sahara, they survived. Okay. Now, after 1990, what happened? There was the next phase that started, that is the entry of the low cost or ultra low cost air carriers. Okay. And then we saw this thing that after 2003, basically the low cost carriers, they entered in the India. However, the problem is that out of the low cost carriers that have entered, very few have been able to survive. So now what are the problems that the low cost air carriers are not able to survive? So there are many reasons that have been given. The first reason is that guys, actually the high taxes that are imposed on aviation turbine fuel. So aviation turbine fuel is used by the aircraft, so very high taxes are imposed on them. Now guys, when we talk about India, India is a very price sensitive market, and basically airlines have to charge very low prices if the people want to. Now see this thing, I just want to give you a case study. So Ola and Uber, when they came in the start, what they did, they gave you very subsidized, very low cost taxi rides. Why? Because at that point of a time, the Ola and Uber were trying to change your habits. Once you will be tuned, once you will be accustomed to travel in the cabs, you will pay even the premium price. So in the start, they gave you 29 rupees ride, even free rides were given to a lot of them. And now the people have become habitual of using the cabs, and now they are even charging the surge pricing, premium pricing they are charging. Now, when we talk about the air travel also, first the air travel, basically the airlines, they are looking to this thing that the people becomes habitual of trying flying with the airlines, and for that particular thing, very less, very affordable prices have to be offered. So when we talk about India's tariffs or airfares, they are actually 15% below the break-even point. Break-even point is no profit, no loss. 15% below the break-even point. And then government is charging so much of the taxes on the ATF and so many other charges are there that actually the losses of the airlines have accumulated a lot. We'll see these things. Number one is very high taxes on ATF. Then basically when we talk about the operational expenditure of an airline, so 40 to 50% of the operational expenditure of an airline is because of the fuel charges, and fuel is very expensive, ATF is very expensive. Apart from the taxes that are being imposed by the central government, some of the states also has imposed the 30% of the provincial taxes on the ATF fuel. Okay, so this is one reason. Then guys, the next issue that comes here is that, okay, the next issue that comes here is that in the past, government's policy also imposed large number of barriers on the new airlines to enter. Now see, basically between 2004 to 2016, okay, what the new airlines, if they have to start the foreign operations, if they want to fly international, there was a condition that they need to have an experience of 5 years and need to have at least 20 aircrafts if they want to fly international. Now this particular policy actually got changed with the coming of the National Civil Aviation Policy 2016. Okay, so the 5-year experience rule was removed, but to have 20 aircraft rule, it was retained. Now, when this particular change was being brought in the National Civil Aviation Policy, that now 5-year experience is not needed, you can start. This particular rule was opposed by the old international carriers. Now, I will explain you one concept here. So basically, guys, this was the time when the Air Asia, Vistara, they were lobbying the government to remove this 520 rule. But at that point of a time, the old carriers, okay, who have continued their operations since long time, they did not wanted that this particular thing should happen. Why? Because they have met that particular obligation, and these new carriers are not being allowed to meet they are being given a waiver to meet this particular obligation. So that is something that was not liked by the legacy airliners, but actually this particular rule got relaxed. But then there are the other problems that come in the aviation sector. What is a very big problem? See, most of the Indian airlines, they do not own their aircrafts. They don't own their fleets. What they do, they take the aircrafts on tariff. They take the aircrafts on rent. Fine, they are leasing the aircrafts from the foreign companies, and these most of the companies are based out of India. Okay, and actually if I give you the data, 80% of the India's total commercial fleet is leased. It is leased. It has been taken on lease according to the PwC, and they have to pay the charges every 6 months, and the charges have to be paid in the terms of the US dollar. And we know this particular thing, that the rupee has been very much volatile in the front of the dollar, and there is a lot of rupee that has depreciated. And actually what is happening, as the dollar is appreciating or rupee is depreciating, we need to pay even more and more premium. Is it clear or not? So as we have to pay the money in the terms of the dollar, and because of the dollar fluctuations, more burden is coming on the airliners, and because of this particular thing, again their operational expenses increase. Then the next problem that comes here is that, guys, is the very high airport fees, airport charges that are there. So basically when the airlines, they have to land an aircraft landing fees is to be given, freight handling fees are to be given, other charges are to be given. If they are now the charges to use the runway, the charges are to be given, as the passengers will be coming in our airport, they will be using the facility. So many of the airport charges have to be given by the airlines. Now guys, when we talk about the airlines in the context of India, understand this thing, that for the government run airports, Fine. These charges are actually regulated by the Airports Economic Regulatory Authority (AERA). Okay, but now we see that many of the private airports are also coming up. For example, a lot of airports have been given to the Adanis. Many of the airports have been given to the Adanis. Now, because they are now the private airports, so their charges cannot be regulated by the AERA. Okay, so they can now even ask more charges, which will further add on the burden on these airliners. So these are the major issues. These are the major issues. So actually, what can be then solutions? Okay, so let's see the solutions also. Number one, when we talk about the solution, so basically government needs to rationalize the taxes on the ATF, so the operational expenditure, operational cost of the airlines come down. The next thing that comes here in this particular direction, guys, is that government need to promote aviation policy, stringent conditions. Okay, only when the safety is concerned, then there needs to be the stringent conditions. But apart from that, in the operation, there needs to be little bit of a breathing room that is to be given. Then next thing that comes here is that, guys, many of the aircrafts, they are leasing the aircrafts from the foreign companies. So government should ask these foreign companies to start their operations in India. Why? Because when they will start their shop in India, when they will start their operation from India, then the money will be given in terms of rupee. Okay, actually the problem is that rupee dollar volatility that is there. Okay, so they need to be paid in rupee, and even if then the dollar is fluctuating, additional burden will not come on airlines. Okay, and then the basically airport user charges are also needed to be rationalized. Okay, and there also need to be a law on the private airports that they don't charge irrational, they don't charge irrational airport, uh, they don't charge irrational cost for the airport usage. Okay, now moving to the next article. Study on sludge finds Study on sludge finds high potential for use as fertilizer after treatment. Now, we'll see this particular article with respect to GS paper number 3. Okay, GS paper number 3. Fine, environment, ecology, resource management, okay, optimal utilization of resources. We'll see this particular article. Now, first of all, before going in this particular article, let me explain you some of the background information. So, guys, right now, India is running the National Mission for Clean Ganga, National Mission for Clean Ganga, in which we want to clean the Ganga. Now, basically, as the part of the National Mission for Clean Ganga, there is also one more part, there is one more mission under the National Mission for Clean Ganga that is going on. That is the Earth Ganga. Earth Ganga. What is Earth Ganga? Earth Ganga means utilize the economic potential of the river Ganga. So as the river Ganga flows through many of the towns, what we can do? We can, now that Ganga river can generate a lot of economic value. Okay. For example, Ganga tourism can be there. Ganga tourism can be there. Moreover, around the Ganga river's course, there can be basically agronomic practices. There can be the organic crops that can be grown. Okay, there can be medicinal plants that can be grown around the Ganga river. So basically, Ganga river's economic values to be leveraged under the Earth Ganga. And now actually, under the Earth Ganga, one more dimension we can add. Basically, what actually has happened? So recently, an analysis was carried on the sludge that is found in the sewage treatment plants. Now understand this thing. As we are cleaning the Ganga, so basically Ganga is also to be cleaned of the sewage that is entering in the Ganga river. So on the Ganga river, there are the sewage treatment plant that have been established, and this sewage treatment plant, they have analyzed the sludge, they have analyzed the waste, the sludge in these particular plants, and they have found this particular thing that this particular sludge, it has it has a lot of potential, that this sludge can be used as a fertilizer. Fine, this wastage, this sludge that is being deposited, basically that is being retrieved by the sewage plant, that particular sludge can be used for the agriculture purpose as a fertilizer. Moreover, it can also be used as a biofuel, Fine. So this is a possibility that the wastage, the sewage from the sewage that is flowing in the Ganga, it can be converted in the fertilizer. Okay. So here we see this particular thing, that under the Earth Ganga, we can monetize, we can also reuse this waste water, we can reuse this particular sludge. Now, when we talk about this sludge, okay, it can be classified as category A or category B. Class A wastage, class A sludge, or class B sludge. Now, this particular classification has been given by United States Environment Protection Agency. So class A sludge is one which can be disposed in the open, which can be used as an organic fertilizer. And the class B wastage, class B sludge is that which can be used but in a very restricted sense in agriculture. Okay, this particular sludge, this particular wastage cannot be exposed to the edible parts of the crop, cannot be exposed or cannot be allowed to come in contact with the edible part of the crop. This particular sludge should not come in contact with animals, people, etc. But this particular sludge can be used in the soil. Now basically this category B sludge, as we talk about it, as we talk about this category B sludge, so they have uh, they have high nitrogen and phosphorus levels, and because of that particular thing they can increase the fertility of the soil. Okay, so there is this there now, but actually there is also one problem is that India doesn't have right now any standards as classifying the sludge as a category B or category A. Okay, so category A, category B is there, but how to identify that? Okay, what standards are there to identify that? We don't have that right now in India. So point is that India needs to work more on proper categorization of this sludge. We need to find more applications of this particular sludge, and we need to find the ways that how that particular sludge can actually be used, so that from that also we can monetize the we can monetize this particular sludge, and we can achieve the Earth Ganga's target. So this is about it. Fine. I hope guys that you have understood this particular article. Now moving to the next article. A ground view of the Indian Space Policy 2023. A ground view of the Indian Space Policy 2023. Now, basically, guys, recently the ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, has released their Indian Space Policy 2023. And this particular policy is giving a very good recommendation that how the India's space sector can be more developed by bringing private players. Fine. We'll see this particular article, guys, with respect to the GS paper number 3, Science Technology. Okay. Now, basically, guys, the article says this particular thing that till 1990, when we talk about the India's space industry, India's space economy, it was largely led by the ISRO only. Okay, private players, they were not largely involved into the space sector in India. They were only allowed to a capacity that ISRO will give them some design, and they need to build that particular design, they need to construct that particular design. Okay, so many of the components of satellites, many of the components of the rockets, they were to be manufactured by the private player. Beyond that, private player didn't had much role in the space sector. Now it is said that actually post 1990s, when the private TV channels were given the licenses, then the space economy has boomed, space economy has skyrocketed. Now see this thing, private TV channels, find private TV channels, private mobile phone operators, internet, for all this particular thing they need the satellite communication, they need the services of the satellite. So as the private TV channels are coming, as the internet is coming, as the mobiles are coming, okay, as the emergence of smartphone has happened, so there will be the more and more requirement for the satellite based communication, satellite based services. These mobile operators, TV operators will pay for using the satellite services. Okay, so actually when we talk about today the space economy, its size has become $9.6 billion. Okay, and ISRO's budget is $1.6 billion, but this India's space economy is $9.6 billion. Now, with the coming of broadband internet, OTT platforms, 5G, there will be even more satellite services, satellite based communication that will be required. So point is that the space economy of India is going to increase to $60 billion by 2030. Now here it is being said that actually it can also create more than 2 lakh jobs in India as well. So therefore, now actually what is happening, ISRO is coming out with this particular vision that as a space economy is going to grow, let's bring the private sector also, private startups also, so that they can generate more and more jobs. Moreover, when we talk about the ISRO is largely a research organization, and its expertise is in research, not in commercialization. So what has happened now, the ISRO has come with India Space Policy 2023. And in this particular space policy, what they want to do, they want to enable, encourage and develop commercial presence in the space, and want to bring the private players in the space exploration. Okay, so ISRO will just be the research organization. It will spearhead the commercialization of space. Actually, the commercialization of space will be led by ISRO, but participants will be the private sector players who will actually be doing the work there. Now, basically what actually has happened, the ISRO has given 5 priorities. The ISRO makes 5 priorities. India, number one, provides this particular thing, that ISRO can play a very important role in India's socio-economic development, security, protection of environment, lives, pursuing peaceful exploration of outer space. Can also generate the interest of the common public in the space. Fine. Then the secondly, ISRO says this thing, that ISRO's focus is, now ISRO can play an important role in socio-economic development, space exploration, all these things. Secondly, it says that ISRO's focus is to develop the civilian and peaceful application of the space-based technologies. And for that particular thing, what ISRO is doing, ISRO has identified the specific roles of its different arms, different wings. Now understand this thing. Under the ISRO, there is basically it identifies its role. It identifies the role of the Department of Space. It identifies the role of Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in space. Now, InSpace is an organization which specifically has been built to enable the private sector to participate in the space activity. And it also, now this was set up in 2020. Now, it also has established the clear role of the New Space India Limited, NSIL. Now, what is NSIL? NSIL is a public sector unit, okay, PSU of the ISRO, fine, which will further help in the commercialization of the space activities. Then it is saying that, okay, with ISRO will give basically the ISRO will hand over the commercial things, will hand over the specific targets to all these organizations that we have seen, and then ISRO will largely be focusing on sharing technologies, sharing products, processes, sharing best practices with the NGs, non-government entities. Okay, so actually what is happening now, the ISRO will specifically be focusing on building the research, will be focusing on doing the research, will use its trained manpower for doing the research. It will develop technologies, and those technologies will be given to the private sector. They will build upon those particular technologies. Okay, and ISRO meanwhile will focus on the Chandrayaan, Gaganyaan, the long-term projects that were there. Fine. However, the article says that actually there are the gaps also with respect to the ISRO's space policy 2023 that they have come. Now, ISRO is setting aside a very big role of InSpace. Now, InSpace is the organization which will help the private sector to participate in the space exploration, but it has not given a particular time frame. It has not given a particular time frame in which the InSpace has to create regulatory framework, in which the InSpace has to frame the policies for the private sector participation. They have not given the time frame. Moreover, it is said that when we talk about the regulatory bodies, for example, Reserve Bank of India is there, SEBI is there. Now, all of them have been backed by the law. For example, there is RBI Act of 1934, there is a SEBI Act of 1992. Fine, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, it has been backed by the TRAI Act of 1997. But this InSpace, which is going to regulate the space sector, it will regulate the private sector's entry, it is not being backed by any legislative action under it has not been backed by any other law. So this is all that has been the issues. Okay, so this is all, guys, about this particular article. Now moving to the next article. Okay, the fallout of Putin helping make NATO great again. Okay, now what is this particular article, guys, all about? So the article will be seeing with respect to the international affairs GS paper number 2, and this particular article provides this thing that now with the Russia-Ukraine war, and because of the role that has been played by the basically the Russian President Putin, he is helping in further consolidation of the NATO. Let's see this particular thing. So basically, when we talk about the NATO, first of all, okay, so if you focus here, so this is the map of the NATO. These countries in dark blue are the countries which are the members of the NATO. So when we talk about, guys, the NATO is the military alliance of 31 countries, and the NATO, it stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. These 30 countries are, out of these 31 countries, 29 countries are from Europe and 2 countries are from North America, that is the Canada and the USA. Now this particular NATO alliance is led by the USA, and all these 31 countries, they pledge this thing that if any attack on any one of them will happen, then it will be deemed as attack on all of them. So it is a military alliance. And recently what has happened, Finland has joined the NATO, and with the joining of the Finland, the NATO's border with the Russia has increased a lot. So when we talk about the direct border of the NATO with the Russia, so here there was Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, but with the joining of the Finland, a very big border directly has opened up with the Russia for the NATO. Moreover, recently there are also the news that the Sweden will also be joining the Finland in the due course of time. So point was that earlier Finland, Sweden were not the member of NATO, but now they have come together. Many of the European countries who were not always very critical of Russia, now they have become critical. So actually Russia itself has helped in this particular kind of a arrangement. Okay, a minute. So we have already seen first of all the NATO and the recent addition of the Finland and all these particular kind of a thing. So the article says this thing that how Russia is helping in bringing Europe together against itself only. So when we talk about the early times, the countries such as Germany, France, they had a soft corner for the Russia. They were not that much critical for the Russia. Actually, Europe was divided when their stand with the Russia was concerned. Some of the countries in Europe, they said that okay, Russia is not that bad also. Some countries were very critical of Russia. But actually, when this Russia-Ukraine war got started, all the countries have now become very critical of the Russia. So Russia's own actions have united the Europe against Russia. This is something. Then next, when we talk about guys, the Mr. Putin, he never expected that the Finland and Sweden would give up their neutrality and would join the NATO. But why they have given up the neutrality? It is because again of the Ukraine war that got started. Then next thing, guys, that when we talk about this particular thing, basically, fine, yes. So one more thing, guys, that is opening up here is that when we talk about the Russia, apart from the immediate border areas that they have, fine, there is the Nordic region. There is the Nordic region. Okay. Now, fine. Now there is a Nordic countries. Now, when we talk about the Nordic countries, when we talk about the region around the Arctic Ocean, this is also one region which is becoming hostile now. Now, guys, understand this thing? Fine. So, when we talk about the Arctic region, now see this particular thing. As the neighboring countries of the Russia is joining the NATO, okay, now the Arctic region is again going to become a new ground for confrontation. Why? Now see, here already the countries have joined the NATO. Now earlier when we talk about the Arctic region, this particular region was frozen under the ice around the entire year. But now what has happened with the coming of the climate change, the Arctic region is melting, and the Arctic region at the same time also has a lot of mineral resources. And now again the new battle, apart from the land areas, now the battle will start that who will control the Arctic region. So this is going to be a new front that is opening here in this particular direction. Okay, so this is a new front that will open here. Okay, then guys, next when we talk about Russia, fine, when we talk about the Russia, so basically it is being said that for Russia, cohabitation rather than confrontation with NATO was an option. Okay, you cannot fight the NATO when we talk about the Russia. Why? Because NATO has so much of strategic locations. Fine, Finland, fine, NATO has just come to the borders of the Russia. So Russia should have chosen option to cohabit, to cooperate with NATO, but Russia chosen to confront it, and it has changed all the stakes for the Russia. Now, when we talk about India, what are implications for India here? Now, number one, guys, understand this thing that India, when we talk about it, India has always maintained a kind of an ambiguity on NATO. India has always maintained a strategic silence on NATO. Neither they have appreciated NATO nor they have criticized NATO. Now, when the NATO's expansion is happening, Russia needs friends who can help Russia. Now, guys, India is not going to come very clearly and they say that okay, we support Russia and we criticize NATO. So Russia will be moving to China. Okay, why? Because China has maintained a very strong stance against the NATO, and China has said that anytime they will be coming to help the Russia. Okay, moreover, the ideological realignment is also there between the Russia and the China. So these two countries will come together, and if Russia and China will come together, obviously there will be the implications on India. The next thing, guys, that when we talk about it, Now, India in the last few years have tried to interact with the Nordic region. Okay, and recently, India Nordic Summit in 2022 was also held. Fine, where Prime Minister visited the Copenhagen. Now, India is very much interested into the Nordic region, and now the Nordic countries are also participating in the NATO. So, Nordic region is coming under the umbrella of NATO. Now, whether India will still cooperate with them, if India will cooperate, it means that India is cooperating with the NATO members also. And if India will do that thing, then the relation with the Russia will be impacted. So will India continue to do that or not? Then the next thing, guys, that comes here is that basically when we talk about India, India has an observer status in the Arctic Council. Okay, and India pursues Arctic Council, where India says that there needs to be the peaceful exploration of the Arctic Council. Now, Finland has joined the NATO. Sweden is planning to join the NATO. China says that it has a near Arctic status. Now understand this thing. Within the Arctic also, there are the complications that are coming with the joining of Finland, Sweden. Okay. Now, in the Arctic Council, India has an interest, and within the Arctic Council states are now joining the NATO. So this Arctic Council region is also becoming complicated. Will India continue to cooperate with that or not? So these are the very tough choices that are going to come for the India as India proceeds in this direction. Okay. So that is all, guys, about it. And now we'll move to the next article. Okay, so guys, here there is this case study that we can use in our answers. ICMR conducts trial run of blood bag delivery by drone. So ICMR, which stands for the Indian Council of Medical Research, what they have done, they have conducted the drone test to deliver the blood. Now understand, there are many of the inaccessible regions, particularly into the hilly areas. Many of our troops, many of our armed forces personnel, they are stationed into very tough territories such as the Ladakh, Siachen region, in many mountainous regions. Many times they are stationed into the forested regions where road connectivity might not be very much good, but they need urgent medical supplies. So for that, drones can be used for supplying blood, for supplying medicines, for supplying vaccines, and many other unconnected areas also, remote areas also. The connectivity for medical kits, medical devices, etc., can be given by using the drones, and ICMR has conducted the test of this. Okay, a good thing. Fine, we can use it. How the technology is further helping in how the technologies are helping in providing the accessibility of the critical medicines. Now, this initiative of ICMR is called as iDrone initiative. It is iDrone initiative. Okay. Now moving to the next article. Shanti Niketan may be added to World Heritage List. Okay. So basically, guys, what India has done, India has recommended the name of the Shanti Niketan to be added into the World Heritage Site list. Now see this thing. When we talk about, guys, the Shanti Niketan, so Shanti Niketan was established by Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, Shanti Niketan, sorry, was actually associated. Shanti Niketan is actually associated with the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. Now, this is a small town in the West Bengal's Birbhum district, and the Shanti Niketan is also a place where the Vishwa Bharati University has also been established. Now, the Shanti Niketan has been recommended to be added into the World Heritage Site list. This recommendation was made by the central government to the International Council on Monument Again and Sites. Now this particular recommendation has been made, and finally it could be nominated as a World Heritage Site in the World Heritage Committee meeting that will be held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in the September 2023. Fine, then we will know that whether it will be added or not. And if selected, then the Shanti Niketan would be the second cultural symbol from West Bengal which will make to the UNESCO list. So already the Durga Puja of Kolkata has been added into the intangible cultural heritage list, and now the Shanti Niketan will also be added there. Okay. Then, okay, guys, now this particular article, you don't need to require to go too much in detail in this article. So basically what has happened, so India, US, both will strengthen the cooperation under G20. So basically, guys, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, will visit the USA in the next month. That particular thing has been finalized, and when he will travel there, both the countries will focus at how the cooperation on freedom of navigation and how the cooperation on many other like areas can be enhanced. So till that time, you don't need to see. Now just the article is saying that the meeting between the US and India has been finalized when India will travel to the USA next month. Okay. And now the main practice question for today. So the question for today, it reads, Finland joined NATO, marking a definitive shift in Europe's post-World War II alignment. Though India maintained a strategic silence on NATO's recent expansion, but discuss implications for India. Fine. So how this NATO's expansion will have implication on India. So this will be a GS paper number 2 question, 10 marker. Fine. So that is all guys about the today, and with this we come to an end to the today's newspaper analysis. Now guys, we'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then, please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.